Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
You know, the more I listen to this Myles Garrett wanting to go somewhere else. You don't want to play here? Go somewhere else. We need players that want to play. And you talk about this guy, you mentioned yesterday he spent his money. If he's worried about spending money, spend it in the right area. Get rid of that coach that don't want to win. Get rid of the general manager that don't know how to manage. And I'll tell you what, he wants to save money. You don't have to pay me. I'll coach for nothing. And if he wants my itinerary, tell him to call me. You got my number. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report, All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, and the Barking Browns podcast. I will say he's consistent. He wanted to fire him when they were 11-5 in a playoff team. So I can't say it's just because of one bad season.
Yeah, fan is short for fanatic. You know, sometimes it's best to remember that. A lot of emotionality there. But when it comes to the Myles Garrett thing, I think people need to understand there's negative 36 million reasons why the Browns are not going to trade Myles Garrett. The second they trade Myles Garrett, they owe $36 million in dead cap. That cripples your offseason spending plan. And in fact, they want to do the exact opposite. They want to extend Myles Garrett and extend that to $60 million of spending cash. That's $96 million of a gap there. And you add to the fact that, you know, everyone magically wants to get Garrett to a contender, where those are teams who can't even afford Garrett as far as the compensation because their picks are from 26 to 32. You know, it's the old, you know, the Family Guy mystery box thing where it's you could get a boat or the mystery box. The mystery box could even be a boat. That's the best case scenario, is that you draft the next Myles Garrett, which we know historically does not happen. So I think that people just need to wrap their head around the fact that they can't afford to trade Myles Garrett because then they won't be able to operate. And in fact, they would be firing themselves by doing so because then you couldn't field a roster that you could try to win with.
Well, and there is that crew there's the thought, okay, let's trade Myles Garrett. We'll get some compensation. We'll draft Abdul Carter number 2. For all those folks, here's a cautionary tale for you. And it's what happened when the Eagles traded A.J. Brown and drafted in the first round Treylon Burks. Now, it was middle of the first round to replace him in theory. You know, big receiver. The numbers are scary. 3 years. Treylon Burks, who was thought to be a really good wide receiver coming out of Arkansas, has only played 27 games. He's got a fourth of the receptions. You see 699 yards to over 4,000 and 25 touchdowns to just 1. And again, the thought was, well, you know, we can draft this guy, we pay him less, and we don't have to pay. And this has nothing to do with pay, but what it has to do is be careful with those comps. Draft picks are always a projection.
Yeah, it's the reality of more than 60% of the first-round draft picks will not sign a second contract with the team that drafted them. So by that team's viewing, even if they go on to do stuff later, it was a failure because you failed to be able to develop them, keep them in-house, and grow them, you know, and really reap the rewards of drafting them. So it's be careful what you wish for. You know, a lot of people are just wanting Myles gone because he said some things, and I get it. I wish it wouldn't have went public either. But this is the way this goes. You know, it's they're invested in Myles. They're going to continue. They're going to have to draw a line in the sand and do right by the franchise in this instance. You're not trading Myles Garrett. There's no incentive to do so. In fact, he's under contract for 2 more years, and there's 2 more years of control on the back end of that. So I hope this doesn't get ugly, but the bottom line is they have to draw a line in the sand, and you show up for OTAs. That's got to be their message to Myles.